This is Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television for the weeks of October 12th to October 25th, 2024.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Batchelder.
I'm Wendy Hembrock.
And I'm Brent Barrett.
All right. Welcome back here. Been, I think, 2 weeks since we recorded, so looking forward to talking about some news and recent episodes of shows. Always having some fun here doing that. And we also want to catch you up on a couple of polls. As regular listeners know, we're running one usually once a week there, so we got two of them to catch you up on since we last recorded. The first one kind of came out in conversation, so we made it a poll. Brent's very good at catching those things. We're curious if folks would share with us their age range, so we kind of get a feel for our audience. And results-wise, we came back with virtually everyone who answered the poll being 36 years old or older, with the majority falling in the 46 to 55 range. So, pretty, I would say about where I thought we were going to be.
Gen Z. Woohoo!
I don't know about that.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean,
some of us are in the baby boomer range, but that's okay.
I think those 46 to 55s are Gen Xers mostly, but yeah. I'm surprised we had somebody over 65. That was surprising to me. I didn't think we had anybody up in that age range. But yeah, I was actually kind of sad, but not surprised that we had nobody under 36. So yeah.
Yep. So we're all saying get off our lawn, and well aware of what it means. Good thing or bad thing doesn't really matter. It's just our thing.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we probably fit in with the Only Murders in the Building podcast age group.
There we go. If we had to draw parallels to ourselves,
there's a large expansion of our age bracket that we could still make.
Okay. And now every time I see a promo for that show, I'm going to think of the three of us. Thanks, Wendy.
Have you ever watched it? It's a fantastic show.
It does look like it's a funny show. But
it's very funny.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, I thought it would be.
It's wonderful.
No, maybe I will then, because I do have that service.
But they are bad podcasters.
And how did so many people die in their building all the time? I don't get it.
It's New York.
Fits the plot.
People will do anything for rent control.
Well, the other poll that we had, somewhat similar to that, is we asked folks in what region of the world they were living at the moment, with Brent doing a great job listing, 9 or 10 different options. And overwhelmingly, we came back with more than 80% of you in North America, be that Canada, U.S., or Mexico. So there you go there.
I think our friends around the world are not on our Discord maybe as much.
Yeah, we know that there's more folks in different countries who have chimed in before with feedback, but they, like Wendy said, they're probably not in this poll. But good to see a little bit of representation from Western Europe and the UK and also Australia. That was good.
Yes, very much so. And as you said, these are just the Discord portion of the listeners. But as we always say, please do join it. It's a great spot. Have some fun with our polls and everybody sharing news updates and discussions. So please feel free. Link is always in the show notes. Stop by there and join. It's free and you can have some fun.
Yeah, and you get some, news and information that doesn't always make it onto our show, too.
Absolutely, and a lot of stuff that isn't, because it doesn't make it on our show, it's usually because it's non-genre, so you get to share some cool movies or TV shows that you're watching that aren't genre that you think other people might be interested in. That's been a real great source of information for me and all sorts of stuff like that.
Very good. All right. Well, on that note, let's get ready to move over to our spoiler-free water cooler.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarter Bin Podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarter Bin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarter Bin Podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarterbin Podcast in iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
All right, kicking us off, we've got our quick reviews, and we're going to be covering shows that aired from October the 12th through October the 25th. Starting off with Superman and Lois. We've got 2 episodes here. We're in season 4. Episode number 3, Always My Hero, and episode 4, A Perfectly Good Wedding. Not a show I'm watching.
I would give them both watch it soon, a little lowish.
I'm also not watching.
Next up, we have Agatha All Along, getting near the end of our first season here, but we have episode 6, Familiar by Thy Side, and episode 7, Death's Hand in Mine. I would say for these 2, I had a solid watch it soon, and then actually a watch it now.
Yeah, I would go high watch it soon and watch it now.
I think I'm kind of with Kevin, unless you say solid is actually high, but I say watch it soon and then watch it now.
Yeah, kind of when I say a solid for me, it's not quite high, but it's a really solid.
Gotcha.
Really hit the spot good, but didn't quite get that little notch up to the higher end, which probably makes no sense, but that's okay. It's the way my brain works.
I get you.
All right, next up, we got the return of a favorite for all of us here, and that's Ghosts. We're in season 4. We got the first 2 episodes, so season 1, Patience, and season 2, Sam's Dad. Wasn't as much of a fan as I wanted to be of the first one, so I might say low watch it soon, but then the second one I really enjoyed. I'd say high watch it soon.
Yeah, I'm going to say watch it soon and high watch it soon.
Wow, I'm opposite of both you guys. I really enjoyed the first one more. I'd say high watch it soon on the first one, just regular watch it soon on the second one.
All right, maybe we'll have some fun chatting about that later on. And the final show for quick reviews is going to be Star Trek Lower Decks, beginning of season 5 here. Since I don't watch this show, I'm going to guess on the pronunciation here, Dos Chetos as the first one, and the second one, Shades of Green. As I said, not watching.
It's Dos Cerritos.
Not even
Cerritos
close,
is
Kevin.
the name of the ship.
Okay.
No, if you don't watch it, you wouldn't know that. I would give them both high watch it soon.
I'd give the first one a low watch it now. I loved it. Very Trekky and cool stuff in there. And the second one, a high watch it soon.
Yeah, I could see that for the first one. It was the first one though, so I didn't want to kind of give it too much.
Yeah, and people on our Discord are not loving it either for some reason, which I don't know if I should watch their quick reviews before I watch the show, but I did. And I got a sense that they thought it was okay, but it wasn't great. So I watched it thinking, it's going to be okay, not great. And I'm like, I really love this. I don't know why they're saying that.
Yeah, interesting when that happens. All right. Well, moving into some news items, we got several things here. New York Comic Con, for those who weren't aware, was recently, so a lot of the stuff, or I shouldn't say a lot, good portion is coming from there here. And I've got the first item here, biggest news probably for the week, and that is the fact that the new upcoming show, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, which I'm very much looking forward to. They announced, actually, season 1 hasn't even started here, folks, but they've, doing my air quotes, quote unquote, renewed it for season 2, which, as Brent is always very good at telling us, likely means that was the plan anyway, but officially it makes it a news item to say that it's a renewal. But along with that renewal, which was just wonderful to hear, because it does look like this is going to be quite entertaining, they also announced a casting edition, and this was quite the big news, so if you don't want to know anything, by all means now, jump ahead a couple of minutes. But none other than Tatiana Maslany is going to have a recurring role in season 1 for sure. So, very big news, very strong cast, and very much looking forward to this one.
Yeah, this is great news, especially knowing now that we have Tatiana Maslany in the cast as well, that we're going to be getting a full season 1 and season 2 of Starfleet Academy. This is very exciting news.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I mean, the season 2 kind of makes sense. Star Trek is kind of doing well for Paramount right now, but Tatiana Maslany, I mean, with my hopes of seeing her in season 2 of Echoes being dashed with Echoes cancellation, I'm going to have to get my fix here. So I'm very happy to see that she's been added to the cast.
Yeah, that was exciting stuff. All right, moving on. We also got an update about some additional Good Omens, and Wendy's going to share that.
Yeah, so Good Omens, we knew that there was going to be a season 3. We now know it's going to be very limited. We knew it also was going to be the final season. But Neil Gaiman's in a lot of hot water, legal troubles. So season 3 is basically going to wrap up with a 90-minute episode, which I would have otherwise called a movie. But I'm not surprised there wasn't that much story left, but I do want a proper wrap-up for our 2 main characters. So I'm glad that we're at least going to get that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Wendy. Very glad that we're going to get something from this. A little sad that it's going to be short, but I'm sure they're going to pack a lot into that 90 minutes. And definitely, I'm super excited we're not going to be left with, a cliffhanger because of how the season 2 ended. And we're going to get some kind of resolution.
Yeah, and I think for me, even as someone who's not watching the show, that idea that at least it's going to be ended much more properly than where it was at, especially with all of the concerns around Gaiman, it's good they're at least getting that to be able to finish it out with. All right, next up, we've got some more Star Trek news, and I'm going to let Brent tell us about which show and what it is.
Well, it's Strange New Worlds, which, in my opinion, is what's carrying the torch for the whole legacy and of the whole Star Trek world and universe right now. A 3-minute scene was released from New York City Comic Con. It's an exclusive clip. It's probably early in the first episode, I would imagine. It's an awesome space battle, good old Enterprise struggling to stay in the fight sort of things and not lose track of an enemy vessel. And they come up with a typical kind of Star Trek answer, which I think was great. And they do some things that I don't think we've ever seen in Star Trek before. So it's a really cool clip, cool stuff. It just reminds me of how much I miss this show. It's probably going to come out in 2025. That's what IMDb is guessing. We don't have any firm date yet.
Yeah, and I think I am in exactly the same spot as you, Brent. It was great to see a clip. It was an exciting clip, and it made me go, when are we going to get this? Because I know I'm planning a rewatch of both of the first 2 seasons once we get an idea what it is. I really hope they give us enough lead time. I don't want it to be longer, but long enough so that when they tell me the date, I'll work myself back and plan to rewatch season 1 and 2.
Yeah, this was nice. It was a very long clip. It was a great mix of seeing all the cast as well as seeing some really amazing special effects and a really interesting, intense scene to be coming. So that was actually lovely to look at. It definitely made me looking forward to the return of this. And like you, Kevin, I will definitely go back and rewatch season 2 first.
Yeah, I think I'll probably try to make time for 1 and 2 because I just love that show so much. Love when I have a motivated rewatch. Alrighty, next in our show notes, we've got some links. We've got some trailers to touch on for you. The first one I've got to mention is for the show Severance. Not one we talk about here on the show, mainly I think because it's an Apple TV one. Maybe Wendy's had a chance to see it. We'll find out. But they have dropped the season 2 official teaser. It's about a minute long. Not any intense stuff from the season. So I was glad giving it a watch because this is a show I've heard folks talk about. Seems like this is a very interesting premise in a world where employees can undergo a severance procedure where they're surgically divides their memories between work and personal lives, which seems like an interesting concept. But coming in January the 17th, if you are a fan. So someday here when I get my Apple TV subscription back again, I think maybe I'll see if I can dive into this one.
Yeah, I tried to watch season 1, and this show came at a bad time for me in terms of what it was doing. There was a lot of shows coming out at the same time that were all doing this same narrative trick of repeating things over and over again, things running out of order, and I just didn't care about any of the characters. So it didn't grab me in the first 2 episodes, so I didn't watch it. And watching this trailer actually reminded me why I didn't like it. So I don't know, maybe I need a cooling off period, but it's pretty low on my list to check out.
Yeah, forgetting the fact that, or ignoring the fact that I don't have Apple TV anyway. I looked at this too, and as somebody who didn't watch season 1, obviously, isn't familiar with the show much, just kind of barely remember hearing about it. No connection to any of the characters, obviously. Watching this bit of teaser here did nothing for me. In fact, I was like watching this and saying, this looks kind of boring. A guy has his memory split and he's at work and doesn't remember those coworkers. Wow, that's some great drama there. There's nothing in here to really entice me as somebody who hasn't seen the show.
So I had mentioned I barely remember the show. I think what he's not remembering is doing some really horrendously terrible things at work, but I could be wrong because, like I said, I could barely get through a couple episodes.
Oh, well, this is interesting now. So, at least for me, as to what, I mean, I know it got a bunch of Emmy nominations and all, but, I guess we'll have to wait to see. Like I said, I know there are several on Apple TV Plus that I have an interest in when I do get that subscription, but as Wendy has done a great job, and others too, have reinforced that, again, most of these Apple TV shows, they're not, high action, suck you in the first 10 minutes. You're going to need to spend some time with them.
Except for Slow Horses, which is not a genre show, but actually Slow Horses and Bad Sisters are funny, and they have great plot and great performances and characters, and you are brought in immediately.
All right there. Good to know. All right, switching services. Wendy's going to talk about a show that I know I didn't stick to, but I think you and Brent may have.
Yeah, Brent and I loved School Spirits, and we have an official teaser link to share. This is coming back to Paramount Plus. No specific date of when it's coming back, and it didn't really say much about what's going to happen in season 2. Just, clearly we're continuing on with the mystery of the lead's demise, shall we say. But Peyton List is back, and I'll be definitely looking for the actual date when this is going to drop to watch season 2.
Wow, I was looking at this thing, and I guess I really am old, because I just don't remember much about this show. I know Wendy said that I loved it, and I probably did. But I don't really remember. I have a vague memory with Wendy's description there about the cast and the main character. Vague memory of it, but I don't really have much of a memory. I watched this teaser and I'm like, okay, what is this show? That's bad. That's a bad sign. Okay. It's either a bad sign for me or it's a bad sign for the show.
Oh, okay. It could be my bad memory, but I really thought I thought somebody stuck along for the ride till the end.
It's possible. I thought it was Brent.
It might be.
But again, this is one, and I haven't looked it up, but I think like a lot of our shows now, it's been quite a while since season 1, so that doesn't help for the memory side either.
Absolutely.
I'll go check it out. I'll report back, guys.
Okay. All right. Next up, Brent is going to talk about another show, Nautilus.
Yeah, this is a trailer for a show premiering on Amazon Prime. It has already premiered the day before we're recording this podcast in Amazon Prime in the UK and Ireland. I don't see any word about whether or not it's going to be available in the U.S. anytime soon. I imagine it will be. Why would they bother producing it and not also sell it in other markets? But it's a show, as you can tell from the title, maybe based in the world of Jules Verne, about the submarine, the Nautilus. It's a very steampunky show. It seems to have a lot of oceanic adventure with sea monsters and ancient ruins and the like, and some fugitives on the run inside the Nautilus, it looks like, who are being hunted down. And it looks... it kind of looks maybe, here's a real stretch. It's a real stretch. But when I was talking about it just now, when I was watching the trailer, I was thinking, this is kind of like Farscape, but underwater, if you follow me. I don't know if it's going to pan out as good as Farscape, but it's the same sort of premise. You've got these fugitives on this stolen ship, and they're hiding from the authorities who are hunting them, and they go on these crazy adventures and things. So, that's what I mean. It has kind of that same feel. It will, like I said, it has premiered already on October 25th. Don't know when it's coming to the rest of the world, though.
Interesting. I kind of skimmed through it. I didn't get a Farscape feel, but now that you say that, I can see where that's coming from. But I kind of looked, and again, recognizing the Jules Verne umbrella of what, the Nautilus and that stuff there, went, oh, well, maybe this will be something. But it didn't grab me, but it was one of those ones like, I might go at that at some point.
I didn't catch the Farscape element. I actually got more of a Snowpiercer vibe, and not about the show directly, but because the company that owns the Nautilus is coming after the people that stole the ship, which is kind of parallel to some of the dynamics in Snowpiercer between the people that created the train and the people who are actually controlling the train, and they've kind of stolen it. It did have a great sort of steampunk vibe. I liked the whole concept of some people maybe didn't want to be involved in stealing the ship. So it's got that element, maybe like Farscape, as you mentioned, Brent, with, we have some people who didn't want to be part of this plan, and there might be a lot of interpersonal conflict about what is our plan, what are we doing. They also made a comment about going to other worlds, so I'm going to be curious if we have a little 20,000 leagues under the sea and through a porthole or through a wormhole or something as well. But the monsters definitely look interesting that they're going to come across, and I'm very interested in it and surprised. I had no knowledge of the show before seeing this trailer.
Yeah, if you are someone who has access to it and is watching it, please let us know in the Discord. All right, next item up, a very well-known name here I've got for you folks. Link in the show notes to the official trailer, full trailer for Dune Prophecy. I think we've had a teaser or two up till now. But link in the show notes, over naturally, as almost all of these are on YouTube. It's pretty meaty in the sense of it's close to 3 minutes long, and it very much looks to me like a Dune prequel or setup would be. You got lots of scenes with people talking and lots of political type things there. Not an action scene in sight. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying it looks like we might have anticipated something like this would be. So if you enjoy that kind of intrigue and development and the interpersonal part of coming together of something like this, definitely might be something for you. Coming to Max November 17th.
Well, I really like the new Dune, the movies that they did. This definitely looks like I'm going to use a Game of Thrones analogy. This looks like the House of the Dragon to the Game of Thrones, which is very much about the politics of what's going on, and a prequel many thousands of years before the Dune that were in the recent films. I am going to check it out. They got some very good actors involved in this. But it does look like it's going to be slow, and I do expect that. I also expect it's going to be a lot of, political maneuvering. But I can like that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely that you can, but I can't.
Yes.
I was going to say that when I saw this trailer, the same thing you just said, which it seemed like Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon in space. It had that same feel. The cinematography is wonderful, obviously, from this trailer. The actors, like you say, great cast, but it just doesn't look like it's my kind of thing. I get bored by that stuff. I want more action, and I'll use that in quotes, for my storytelling. So yeah, I'll probably skip this one.
All right. And the final news item we have, another video item. Wendy's got something for Invincible.
Yeah, so Invincible Season 3, we have a long teaser. It's actually one long scene. And I maybe sampled one episode of this, but it just didn't bubble up to be something high priority for me to watch. But the scene is very funny. So I'm sure the show is really good. And I know Brent really enjoys the show. It looks like you're going to get more of the same. There's most of the conversation is about the consequences of some things that happened in season 2. And also, I think some side jabs at the showrunners and some inside jokes, but it was very entertaining.
Yeah, not just some. Almost this entire teaser looks like it was done. I don't think it's going to be in the show. It looks like it was done as a meta joke about how long the show takes breaks in the middle of the seasons and how long it's been since we've seen it. I think they're poking fun at themselves. And not necessarily the showrunner, maybe at Prime, but yeah, it is a very good show. It's if you ever start watching this, if you haven't seen it, get prepared for a show that like turns all of your expectations on their ear. It's really a kind of crazy, goofy, sad sometimes, and also very gory at times show. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, not one I watch, but I know based on the comments you both have made in terms of a show that can have fun with itself is always great to see. All right, well, finishing us out here, we have a Tuner Minute. This one is recorded by Wendy, and it's entitled Ghost in the Machine.
We talked last week about how we may use AI assistants for our entertainment support. What if your entertainment becomes entirely AI generated? Written by an algorithm, composed by an algorithm, visualized by an algorithm. It all may be quite beautiful and moving, but is it the same as television produced by humans? Is an animated series with AI-generated voices going to be different to you? What about a performance in either live action or animation makes it true or authentic to you? I'm not talking about deep fakes. I'm talking about works of fiction that are presented as fiction for entertainment. Will this be a different experience for you? What if you don't know what you are watching was AI generated? Does it matter? When it comes to your future television, does it matter if there's a ghost in the machine?
It's a very good question, Wendy. And you know what? All three of us are in IT to some degree. And for our listeners who don't know that, I'm a software engineer. I'm in IT as well. And I personally have no problem with AI created content, whether it be completely original content or like, answers to questions or things like that. I have no problem with AI. I know a lot of people, and I question how many of these people are being sincere, but a lot of people oppose it, and they oppose it for reasons of they don't want, the AI to take over, which I don't think is going to happen, but they don't want that. Or more importantly, they don't want to like steal jobs. They're taking our jobs from people. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen either. I think AI is going to be a tool like any other, and it's going to help people to create things that couldn't otherwise create them. Just like the YouTube was a great platform for original content creators, people who wanted to do short stories or short films or special effects or things, and they couldn't possibly get a studio to pay for them, but they could put it together themselves and they could put it up on YouTube and distribute it. I think AI is a similar tool. So if the question was really about something completely AI created, and I don't think I'm necessarily opposed to that, as long as it's original and as long as it's entertaining or good to some degree, as long as I feel like I've been entertained by watching, like, for instance, if I was watching a 30-minute episode that was completely AI generated or something, if I felt entertained, I'd have no problem with it. It would not bother me whether I knew it was AI or not. I don't need to know it's AI, but if I'm told ahead of time, I might have a different eye on it, thinking, how is the AI approaching this? But I don't have a problem with it. I might be in the minority, but I think a lot of the people who are very vocally against AI probably also would like to see what it could do and are kind of curious as well, and they just don't want to kind of admit it because they fear that there'll be some backlash on them. But I don't mind it. I for one welcome our AI overlords. I'm just kidding. But I'm looking forward to seeing it actually happen. It's not just a what if. To me, it's a win. I want it to happen. I want to see completely. And I know there's been little bits that have been done completely AI generated, and those are just garbage. I'm talking about a real attempt at a piece of entertainment content. I would love to see completely AI created. But then I think, like I said, most of it's going to be AI is going to be a tool for us. Just like all of the other tools, the cameras, the equipment, the editing software, all the things that we've added to filmmaking and television making over time, it's just going to be another tool. So I don't think we should be so afraid of it. But I wouldn't mind a fully AI-generated thing, Wendy. Not at all.
And I think this is a great follow-up topic for the woman you touched on last week, because like we're discussing, it's very much in the what is it being used for and how is it being used, as to whether you have some of those things that aren't just the knee-jerk reaction like happens to any new massive shift be a technology shift or other things that have happened over the years and will continue to happen. And yes, some folks will just be, running around saying the sky is falling and jobs are going to disappear left and right. And while they certainly will be impacted, and hey, part of the strikes that occurred recently had to do, I know they had a lot of stuff in there to deal with the use of AI for writers and other things. So there are some valid concerns there in what it does. And as long as that information is being properly disclosed, that it was used in some way, I would just like to know that. It's not going to turn me off to it, but I do want to know that's part of it in terms of where things might be going forward on that. I mean, there's so many tools now that the average person, even if you're not a technological person, like we said, like the three of us tend to be very comfortable there, from ChatGPT and other things, just to help people on simple things like writing an email or a letter or doing a better job and summarizing information or data and so forth. So there's a lot of ways it's going to happen, like it or not. And so it's certainly going to touch entertainment, and it's going to be interesting to see what it is.
Yeah, and this wasn't a question about sort of the theoretical idea of AI, but more when you're watching TV, will it be, I would say, more creative, have more humanity? Is it an opportunity for creators? I mean, AI isn't generating itself spontaneously yet, so there's always a person or a subset of people behind whatever's being produced. There's still going to be producers making decisions. So the question then becomes, is it some will be lazy and opportunistic for money and will get sort of, I would call it derivative or formulaic kind of things that are, fast consuming candy that advertisers really want. And then there might be, people who are voices that don't have access and aren't being heard today that, might be able to present some really interesting, creative, extremely human stories for us potentially. So, but I am curious about how I'll use feels, meaning if it hits me as being, true to the human spirit, I guess, especially when you're talking about things that not necessarily animation, but live action that's AI, if the people feel real to me. And I'm not talking about just their behavior looks right, because there's plenty of animated stuff that strikes me emotionally or intellectually because of the story that they're telling. But I'm very curious how this is going to unfold, and if our actual sort of response to what we see changes at all.
Yeah, I have an overall view of this and an instance-by-instance view. The overall view is kind of what I hinted at before, which is that I'm fine with it. I have no problem with us moving forward into that world and having it as tools and seeing what it can do. But in instance-by-instance, Wendy, how I will feel about it, it depends. Like I said, if I have to see it. I have to see a production from an all AI production and see, does it move me? Like you said, does it entertain me? That's the biggest thing for me is, do I feel like I've spent my time with value? Was it worth it? Did it entertain me? And if it did, I don't care about the rest. I'll give it a thumbs up. It did its job. It entertained me. But if you're talking about even beyond that, more philosophical, how do you feel? I have no problem. I like I said, apart from the things that people have legitimate gripes about, like stealing people's voices, or stealing their images or their likeness, that should never do that. God, no. Anybody who's had that happen should be fully compensated for it. I'm totally on board with that. But the concept of AI completely writing something or completely animating something or completely producing something from scratch, doing all the effects and everything, eventually that might happen. I got no problem with that. I want to see what it happens, but I might have a problem with an individual instance. Something might come out that I say that's garbage. That was a waste of time, or maybe I'll like it. So I don't know. I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think we're going to get plenty of opportunity to talk much deeper on this as things actually start to happen.
Well, as I was putting this Tuner Minute together, I was thinking about animation and voice actors who voice animation. And what I was realizing though is like, I've always had animation in my life, right? I was born after animation was created, right? But if we were around in the 1910s and we were watching Steamboat Willie, what would be the slope that we were on? That was kind of the thing I was thinking about, is some of the context for this, because as you pointed out, think about The Mandalorian, right? They're in this giant volume. It's all created. It's created from real images, but it's constructed, so it's not a true place that the actors are operating in, and they're interacting with a puppet. So it's sort of, is it another tool that humans are using? I guess the question is really just, where does the humanity come from the creativity that we consume?
Big stuff. Well, if you folks have thoughts on it you want to share, by all means, send them our way. Email, voicemail, on the Discord, whatever it might be. We always appreciate hearing additional perspectives on our Tuna Minutes. With that discussed, let's move over to the back porch so we can talk in detail about a few recent episodes.
Today we talk about Agatha All Along, Ghosts, and Star Trek Lower Decks.
All right, kicking off this week's back porch, we're going to let Brent talk about some recent episodes of Agatha All Along.
Yeah, on the first episode we're going to talk about here was episode 6, Familiar by Thy Side, which is kind of I love how each one of these episodes is titled as a line from this song, basically this whatever enchantment for the Witch's Road. But it's funny because it's of course Teen, as they refer to him, who we find out is Billy Maximoff. Was initially described as Agatha's familiar, so to say familiar by thy side is kind of cool. But we get a little backstory on him, and at first I was like, please don't spend most of this episode on a backstory. Just tell us the important things and move on. They ended up spending most of it. I think we only ended with like 5-10 minutes of catching up afterwards. But we got some cool backstory information. I thought it was good to explain how Billy could be Billy, because we saw the Hex, Wanda destroy the Hex, and Billy and his brother go away. And it's really an interesting premise they've set up that when she created them, she created their spirits, she created their souls, for lack of a better word. And so when they were vaporized, their souls, their spirits lived on. And it looks like Billy's, because he's a witch, as Agatha said, we do what we need to survive as witches. He found this young man who had just died. Like the instant he dies, Billy inhabits his body and brings him back to life, and he is the teen that we meet. And he had been growing up nearby the whole time, had his own life, had a run-in, interestingly, with Lilia, the fortune teller, at his bar mitzvah, and she had a vision of what would happen to him in his life. And she had that thing where she was controlled by something else. It's like some other power controls her, and she makes up this magical spell on this little piece of wood or whatever it is, and slipped it in his pocket and gave it to him, which is what actually put that spell on him, where he couldn't say who he is. So she's actually responsible for that. It wasn't Agatha. It wasn't Wanda. Well, of course it wasn't Wanda. By that point, she's essentially gone. And I also like the question at the end. I don't know if it was in this episode or the next one, where Billy asks Agatha, is Wanda Maximoff dead? And Agatha says, yes, no, maybe. I love that answer, because that's the answer all of us have as fans. It's like, well, we think she died, but it is a multiverse. We know there's other versions of her. Maybe she didn't even die in that collapse of that temple or that ruin. So I don't know. So that's very interesting stuff. But apparently he's bitter. He doesn't think of Wanda as his mother, but he does love his brother. He's like, I have a real mother, the one who raised this body, basically. and for the last couple of years with Billy inside it. But I like that. That's an interesting attitude that he has. And he is, of course, as we learned from the previous, I think it was the previous episode, we learned that he really wants to find his brother too. So actually, it might have even been episode 6, familiar. But he's definitely going to do that. That's one of his goals, figuring that his brother may have inhabited some body somewhere too. And then that's how we're going to introduce these children of Wanda into the MCU, which I think is kind of cool. Kind of a cool way of doing it, since we kind of wondered how that would happen. You know, because they are characters in the MCU, and people were wondering, well, if she fabricated them, how could they be? And then they were disintegrated at the end. How could they possibly be characters in the MCU? And then everybody was thinking multiverse. And then this is a cool, clever twist on that, which I loved. But the final episode, episode 7, I loved the backstory on Lilia. This is a character, the fortune teller one. She's a character who I honestly didn't really latch on to. I mean, she was fine, but she wasn't like a favorite or anything. By the end of it, I was like really feeling for this character because she lives a very interesting life where she's constantly bouncing around in her life, in her timeline, in her life. Her consciousness inhabits her body at various points in her life. Apparently it happened a lot when she was younger, and then it stopped happening for most of her life, and then it just started recently again, she said. And then it was pointed out to her that might mean her life is coming to an end, which it looks like it actually is. And then it actually does seem to come to an end, but then at the end she's popped back into her young self, or at least we see her young self. And we're wondering, well, is this like an endless cycle? What's going on here? But the amount of essentially, I guess, sacrifice really that Lilia engaged in here in this particular trial in this episode, where she was required, because it was a tarot reading trial, and they were being hunted by the Salem witches. Forgot what number they are, but the Salem witches. And she wanted her friends to escape, and she managed to get the trial completed. The doorway opened, and she pushed her other friend, who's Jennifer, through, and closed the door and accepted her fate. But she accepted her fate because she could turn the trial against the Salem witches, and she did. And she made it such that apparently she's dead. We didn't, this whole, you haven't really seen the dead body, so we don't know for sure, but it looks like she died. But she definitely sacrificed or destroyed all of the Salem witches, because they all fell onto these swords, and they're all very dead. But you really feel for that character. So I gave this one a higher rating, because they did a really good job of taking this character that I didn't necessarily love a lot and bringing her up to the point where I did really feel for her and was sorry to see her go. And and we also got some more confirmation of Rio, who being death in these flashbacks and these things too, and in this story. So a lot of good stuff in there. Anyway, I've rambled. You guys go ahead.
No, you covered it pretty well in terms of, my thoughts are very similar. The backstory one, same thoughts. Like, oh no, yeah, I want to know this, but I don't want to know it for an entire episode. And they gave a few minutes, so it didn't, at least there was that. But it was foundational to the show, so it was important enough that I got to tell you, when it started, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go through all this, but it was stuff to learn, to understand. And as you talked a little bit about, it's got some stuff's going to flow through many other things. So it was good to see it, good to know. Okay, now that fits, we understand it. But then the latest episode, as you said, was just awesome. And I got to give this show a lot of credit. They've been able to do, they got so much great stuff happening with costuming and having fun with the idea of putting them in different costumes almost each episode for the different trials they're going through. And the personalities of each of them is different enough that they come more to the forefront in a given episode. And as you said, this one was excellent to see all that, and having to deal with that whole idea of experiencing things in a totally different time approach than we're used to. So it's very fascinating stuff. I'm kind of disappointed they're going to drop. Well, I say I'm disappointed. It may turn out that it's for a better purpose, but they're giving us the last 2 episodes of the season on the same day, right around Halloween. So I guess I kind of get that. But this is a show where I've kind of enjoyed having a week between them because sometimes it's some great stuff to think on before you get to the next one. So, will be interesting to see if that's just based on what's going to happen. It's better done that way or not, but I'm kind of disappointed it's coming to an end.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Kevin. I was like, oh, they're so good. I don't want this to end. The most recent episode in particular, I had a similar reaction in the beginning of the Billy William backstory one because they were going all the way back to when he first met Agatha. And I was like, oh, we're retreading too much stuff. But once we had the bar mitzvah part and some other stuff, I was more interested. And I really liked how they tied that back in with the most recent episode and how Lilia put the sigil on him, but didn't even remember it as soon as she was done doing it, and how her whole life has kind of been that way because she's living it in out of time sequence. So that was really interesting. I loved all the homage elements in the most recent episode Trial, Elphaba, Maleficent, the evil queen from Sleeping Beauty, that she was Glinda. I love that room that they were in with all the swords and how they used all those tarot card elements, the reversal of the tower. She reverses that and uses the swords to kill the 7 sisters, presumably herself as well, at the end. And I liked the part about flipping back a little bit to the Billy stuff. His relationship with Agatha is more interesting to me now that he knows who he is and is coming into his power in terms of his mind reading ability. I liked everything about the most recent episode in particular. And I just don't know where this is going to end up at this point. Are we going to get everyone back who died? Is it going to be some new reality that only half the people remember? I'm going to be really curious how this story resolves once we get to the end of The Witch's Road.
I'm guessing we're not going to get a cameo from the Scarlet Witch, but here's hoping. I loved, you were talking about the different personas there, right? I loved Agatha as the Wicked Witch of the West and her looking at herself and saying, they base this character on me.
Oh, and we didn't even talk about Rio coming in and them learning that she's Death. I also loved the Maestra when Lilia was a child and how because her life has basically lived out of order, but ultimately in total reverse. So she starts back at the beginning of her witch training. At the end, that was great.
Yeah, I'm finding for me that with this show, I'm going to want to go back and rewatch it because there's so much great stuff dropped as we've gone along. It'll make it even more enjoyable rewatching it and knowing what's going to come.
Yeah, because I'll be watching for all those little breadcrumbs that are telling us what's coming before we even knew it. The other thing I got to give a shout out for the show is the use of music. The Jim Croce Time in the Bottle song at the end was just phenomenal.
Perfect, yeah.
Yep. Sad there's only those last 2 episodes.
Kudos for, I would say, self-discipline. This has been a very well-paced series.
Yeah, no boring episodes. The flashback might have been a little too long, but no boring episodes.
Yep. Definitely a case of where, and this one's going to be 9 episodes, you've got a certain amount of time and you're using it in an entertaining way all throughout. All right, then, moving on, we're going to talk, I'm going to kind of lead us a little bit on the Return of Ghosts, as we, gave the quick reviews earlier, the first 2 episodes for season 4. These comedies, as we touch on, I certainly know I've touched on when we, have them for, genre shows to talk about. It's usually that fun spot throughout the week where you just get to disappear into smiling and having something to enjoy. And so I was very pleased been very much looking forward to Ghosts coming back. Now, for me, I didn't think the first episode of the season was that great. I didn't laugh very much. I'm not saying it's a bad episode. It was certainly good to see Patience, and after they threw us at that cliffhanger at the end of last season with her out there and pulling her in, that was good. And this character looks like it's going to have some fun stuff happening. But this very first one was just kind of okay. I mean, it was good to see a lot of everybody back and to see the consequences as she's back to talk about what's been done and some things there. But definitely for me, from a laugh point of view, I thought the second one with Sam's dad and that whole setup and even Patience getting the walls to bleed and a lot of the stuff with Nigel and other things definitely gave me more, like I say, laughs for this setup and pretty well done, and doing it, you know, in the ways that have made this show very funny. So it's great to have it back. I'm not, like, I think hard on these, but I definitely am glad and I'm looking forward to a couple more episodes in, as we often see, especially with comedy writers or actors in comedies. Now that Patience is part of things, I can see some really fun stuff coming.
Yeah, the first episode, I figured Patience wasn't going to be a recurring character, so I was glad actually that they went back for her. I actually liked the human chain and the whole telephone game about Thor getting to Thor. That was fun. It wasn't, you know, laugh out loud funny though. And then the most recent episode, it had more of the ghosts being themselves, you know, the Nigel getting rid of his ex and Thor and Flower trying to de-thruple. Patience, I don't know. Patience could be annoying if she's too much the focal point of, you know, the conflict. It was fine in these ones, you know, but hopefully she's gonna tone down a little bit.
Yeah, I actually really dug the first episode. I think I gave it a higher rating than you guys. Kind of reversed the quick reviews. I just love Patience. I love the back and forth with all the ghosts. I like that we find out that the basement ghost didn't intentionally want anybody to be kidnapped, and they didn't expect that Patience would drag the first ghost away. And then when they went to show how it happened, the other ghost gets dragged away too, and they're like, "No, we didn't want that to happen. We didn't plan that." No, I love that because I don't want to hate the basement ghost. So it's good that they didn't have any real part in that. They were duped by Patience, just like everybody else, basically. But I'm glad that they pulled her out. I figured it was time to have another ghost appear for a while now. She might go away. She might realize that the modern world isn't for her and go back to her hole eventually, I imagine. Or they could twist it up and she could be exposed to things like TV and then start expanding her horizons. But it has been a very long time and she's been very set in her ways. So probably not. I predict she's going to be a short-lived house guest ghost, and she'll probably remain in her hole for most of the time moving forward. The Sam's dad story, it was less fun for me. It just seemed pretty predictable sitcom stuff for me. The whole idea with Patience not being able to accept an unmarried couple in the same bed and all of that, and all the problems that our hero was having with her dad, with the relationship they've had and learning that it wasn't all necessarily his fault and all of that, and then the saccharine sweet sort of her playing the recorder or whatever it was at the end for a recital and all of that stuff. So it was okay. I gave it a watch it soon. I enjoyed it. But I don't think it was as good as the first one for me. It was just a little more predictable.
Yeah, I agree. It was predictable. I really liked Dean Cain, though. He was fantastic in Breaking Bad, and he's got good comic timing. So hopefully we'll see him back.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
Yeah, as you said, Wendy, with Patience, it's pretty one note in terms of what her humor will be. So either if you only have a little of it, it can be funny, or as you said, if it's sporadically spread out. But if it's the same thing over and over in every episode, you're right, that'll get old really fast. But these writers usually have done a good job balancing all of the ghosts in their, kind of their joke that they get to get away with. So we shall see.
Well, also, I mean, we did have Hetty turning into a feminist, somewhat. So she might, loosen some of the starch out of her bonnet as we go along.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what we get. And the final show we want to talk about, Brent and Wendy, with Wendy leading, I'm going to talk about beginning of season 5 for Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yeah, Lower Decks is back, and the first 2 episodes were a lot of fun. I wasn't sure how I was going to like this idea that we have Tendi back with her pirate family and, how long that storyline's going to continue. But the most recent episode was actually pretty fun with the war between the Greens and the Blues, shall we say. But the first episode I thought was very fun, where we have, as Brent mentioned in the quick reviews, a classic Star Trek episode, a mirror version of the Cerritos with each of the crew, in a lot of cases living a different, better version of themselves. So we have Mariner is now not calling herself Mariner. She's Beckett/Becky, and she's the captain, and she's in charge and has all the maturity and authority that Mariner, kind of runs from. Boimler is the number one on the counterpart ship, and the actual captain seems to be dead. So that was kind of sad. But it was fun to see all the counterpart characters working together. That was very sort of classic Star Trek. But it also had some character moments in it, too. Rutherford is missing Tendi and is, sort of withdrawing, and his counterpart is like almost a Borg, and once he recognizes that, he sort of adjusts his counterpart to turn on his friend algorithm so that he's a little more palatable. But you also have T'Lyn trying to help Rutherford sort of engage back with the world as well. So the nice thing about the show is there is, I would call it character moments amidst all the humor, but off to a very good start in my view.
Yeah, I love Tendi, so I love these so much, the focus on her storyline all the way to the end of the second episode when she returned. But loved her interaction with her family, with her sister and her crew. I love her crew, how they're so violent. She's like, no, don't kill them. And then she finally finds out that they all want to do other things and they have to kill and do all this stuff because they want to be dancers and all sorts of things. And
a baker.
Yeah, all sorts of cool things. So it's great how they kind of bond with her in that regard. Yeah, to the point where they'll even do the, not the mutiny, the cutiny against her sister. When they think that she's, going to be too violent, or more importantly, that Tendi thinks that she's going to jeopardize her pregnancy because she thinks her sister's keeping it a secret from everybody. And then we find out a very heartwarming thing that she didn't keep it a secret from everybody, just from Tendi, because their culture would require that Tendi remain with her new baby for 14 years and not be able to go back to her Starfleet life. And her sister really does love her and wants her to be able to go back to her Starfleet life after she pays off her debt, which she does and ends up going back, which I think is just absolutely brilliant. And I love, oh my God, the Orions and the Blue Orions. That's a joke. That's a joke from way back. I don't remember if it's the animated series or something, but the Orions used to be blue. They were mostly male. And so they're kind of playing fun at that. And also how he mispronounces the name of Orion. They did that in the show too, whatever show they originated in. So it's just funny how they carry that on. It's very meta and very funny.
I like our costumes.
Yeah. People would make fun of them all the time. But yeah, I love how they finally turned out to be, Tendi wanted to tie so that nothing would happen to families, and then they both lost all their money. But since they were on the side, the B story or whatever, they were decommissioning the capitalism on some planet and had all these riches and all this wealth and money and stuff that they managed to. Tendi just said, "Hey, I have an idea," and gave it to her family to rebuild their power. And then the Blue Orions are now working for them. which I suspect there'll be some betrayal coming forward in the near future. They'll try to steal from them and take back power, but who knows? We'll find out. I just love the very lighthearted and heartwarming vision of Orion culture that Tendi and this show have given us. I just really enjoy, because previously to that, all we knew from the original series was, the sex workers, basically the belly dancers and stuff, and then we've heard about slave traders, and we've heard about pirates and things, and we all think it's very negative and very bad. And then she's giving this much better view and happier view of their culture, which I really enjoyed. And I also got to have a shout out to T'Lyn. She's amazing. She continues to be a great character. Now she's growing the Vulcan, and I love how she thought she was doing a good thing by fixing the shuttle, and then when Rutherford explained that he intended to use that broken shuttle as kind of a bonding exercise for their friendship, she actually understood that. And then at the end we see her, they come in and she's breaking the shuttle because she wants to put it back into a bad state so that they can. And I think she might actually join them, because she did say something like, we can rebuild it or something. So I think she's going to be, they're going to be a trio now, slowly working on this shuttle, not ever actually fixing it, just so they can continue bonding as friends. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I liked that whole little side story a lot.
All right. Well, I think that will wrap us up for this week, folks. Always a blast when three of us, Brent, Wendy, and I get to sit down and talk about our shows and news and other stuff. We hope you folks enjoyed it as much as we did doing it. So we hope we will catch you all soon, and we hope you take care.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Catch you next time.
We'd love to hear our listeners voice thoughts and send us feedback. Call us at 706-927-8478. Stop by our tuningintoscifitv.com blog to record a SpeakPipe message, or check the show notes and leave us comments. From the blog, you can also find links to forum discussions and subscribe to our RSS feed. Call into our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Skype account and leave us a message. Be social with us on our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Facebook page, or follow us at Tuning Into Sci-Fi on Twitter.
The theme music for Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV is by Beatnik Turtle, used with permission. You've been listening to Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, episode 662, recorded October 27th, 2024.